What's out there? Information is published online for a variety of purposes. There are many types of websites, and not all of them will be appropriate for academic research. Personal sites and blogs are usually maintained by individuals for their own enjoyment. Although the author of a blog may have authority in his or her field, blog posts lack the indicators of scholarly publishing, such as peer review. Commercial websites are maintained by for-profit companies. It's important to remember this bias when assessing their credibility. Informational websites are maintained by organizations or institutions for the purpose of sharing research or other information. You'll need to think about what authority these sources have in the real world as well as online. News and journalism online comes from a variety of sources, some more reliable than others. Next, we'll look at how to begin distinguishing between these types of sites. Authority. In Lessons 1 and 2, you learned how to evaluate sources using the ABCs of authority, bias, and content. It's just as important to use these analytical tools when evaluating websites, because publishing online is so simple that virtually anyone can do it. Let's explore how these ideas apply in the online context. First, we'll return to the idea of authority. Who wrote the content? Who created or sponsored the page? A credible website should provide information about the person or organization responsible for its content. Just as with a published source, a website's author should have experience and credentials in his or her field, and the sponsoring organization should be well established and respected in the field. You can also use a search engine to find additional information about an author if you're unsure. Most scholars will have some sort of presence online. Some web pages may not list an author. This isn't necessarily a red flag. In this instance, the organization that owns the page is claiming authorship. So you will need to evaluate the organization in the same way you'd evaluate an author. Is the organization qualified to make statements about this topic? What is its background and experience? Does it exist, and is it well known outside of the web? A credible site should be clear and upfront about who owns the site and how users can contact the owner. This information should be clearly visible. Bias in content. Just as with scholarly sources, sources you find online should be free of bias. Thinking about a website's purpose can help you determine whether its content might be biased. Ask yourself, why was the site created? To educate? To share information? To argue an opinion? To sell a product? Does the site make money from advertising? Is it trying to sell you something? A credible website should have a mission statement or an About section that explains its purpose and discloses any conflicts of interest. If it contains advertising, ads should be clearly labeled. Take a look at this example from the University of Michigan's Education Policy Initiative. The history and mission sections explain why this site exists and what it does. The links that follow provide additional information about the sponsoring institution and the people who create the content. Finally, content from a credible website should still meet your criteria for a scholarly work. It should be well written and error-free. It should use appropriate language and a neutral tone. It should cite sources to support its assertions.